This video is sponsored by MyBookie.ag. UFC 302, it's finally here. It seems like a pretty long time since there's been a quality card we've been looking forward to, ever since UFC 300. And isn't that insane that 300 was nearly 2 months ago? I swear it feels like it was just yesterday. Well, onward we go to the Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier card. We got some fun fights. You know, it's not like a super card or anything. We might have gotten a little bit spoiled 300, expecting all cards to be that stacked. But I will say that the main event, the co-main event, carried this card pretty good. Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier is the title fight, and the co-main event is also going to be a 5-rounder between Strickland and Paulo Costa, 2 title challengers. One was a former champion, and a lot of people still believe should still be the champion going on right now, as the fight with Dricus du Plessis was very, very close. And, you know, there's a whole lot of people that believe that Strickland won that. Well, with the win here over Paulo Costa, maybe he gets right back in line, fights for the title yet again. In fact, he should be the guy up next against Dricus, regardless, but he took up the fight with Paulo Costa. Respect to him. Respect to Costa for taking the fight too, but in his position, he was gifted this fight. Paulo Costa did not deserve to fight Strickland after losing to Robert Whittaker. Whittaker's fighting Khamzat. Costa's fighting Strickland, but Whittaker beat Costa. That's insane. But the further the years go, the more it seems like the rankings just don't matter. Looking at it that way, stylistically, Strickland versus Costa is a very good fight. It's going to be really fun to watch. But beyond that, we got Kevin Holland versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Kevin Holland rising back up to the middleweight division. Jailton Almeida versus Alexander Romanov. I got a lot to say about that fight. Rennie Brown versus Elizeu. Zaleski dos Santos, that's a pretty good fight. Cesar Almeida versus Roman Kopylov, that is the fight flying under the radar. Grant Dawson versus Solecki. You got Phil Rowe versus Jake Matthews. Niko Price is back versus Alex Morono. Gall versus Bassil Hafez. Ailin Perez versus Joselyn Edwards. And they didn't update this on their website. Gall Tumendemberel versus Lima is not a fight anymore. Gall got pulled out of the fight due to visa issues, I believe. And instead, Lima is going to be fighting Micth Raposo, who just fought in Cage Titans. And that's the thing about this card. There's been a lot of pullouts. 5 total fights got canceled on this card. We were supposed to have Roman Dolidze versus Anthony Hernandez. That was going to be a very good fight. Tatsuro Taira, the undefeated prospect at flyweight, versus Joshua Van. That would have been one of the best fights on this card if it stayed on there. We also had Park Hyung-sung, who was going to fight Lima. Park Hyung-sung got pulled out of the fight. Gall got put in there. He pulled out of the fight. And now we have Micth Raposo, and we don't even know if he's going to be around. Yo, have a round of applause for Lima here for staying in for 3 different opponents. And this is the same guy, for people who don't remember Lima. He's the same guy that got bitten by Igor da Silva on that Ribas and Namajunas card. I like the guy, man. I like his mentality. I like the way he fights. Really good Muay Thai. He's undefeated. Promising prospect moving forward in that flyweight division. We're going to start with that fight first, but before we get into the fights, I would have to say the best prospect of the card. I wouldn't disagree with Lima or Micth Raposo. Both guys are really good, but I'd probably go with Bassil Hafez, just due to the fact of how he performed against Jack Della Maddalena. He looked amazing for a debuting fighter, up against one of the best welterweights in the world. Sometimes that kind of stuff happens, like when Tony Ferguson fought Lando Venata, but I'm curious to see what he's able to do against someone like Mickey Gall. A big step down in competition, but it should be a good follow-up fight from the Jack Della one. The fighter of the night has to go to Islam Makhachev. He's the only champion on the card. He's the pound-for-pound #1 fighter in the world. A lot of people just expect him to run right through Dustin Poirier, so there's a lot of people expecting very high things out of Islam, but I wouldn't be opposed to Dustin Poirier if anybody says he's also like a big fighter people are looking forward to on the card as well. The stake of the night, the fighter that's in hot waters that desperately needs a win here, is Paulo Costa. Paulo Costa is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and that only win was against Luke Rockhold, who's retired now and doing other things. He's fighting in bare knuckle boxing against Mike Perry, got beat down there, but he did get a good win at Karate Combat against Joe Schilling. At least good win considering his age and stuff. So if Paulo Costa loses this fight to Strickland, that might be it for him to go for a title ever again. And if he doesn't make the best out of this, that's probably it for him. The banger of the night, the most explosive fun fight on the card in my opinion, is the Cesar Almeida versus Roman Kopylov fight. That is going to be exciting. Both strikers, knockout artists, and that's going to be headlining the prelims, so perfect placement for a fight like that in my opinion. And the fight of the night, no brainer, goes to the main event. It's by far the highest level fight of the entire card. Islam Makhachev and Dustin Poirier are some of the best fighters in the world, some of the most skilled fighters in the world right now. It's going to be a treat to see a high level fight like that. Not only with their skill set and their techniques, but even like game planning. They both have really good corners behind them, come from very good camps, and we're hearing a lot about the game plans or the mentalities of both fighters going into this fight. And with that, let's go to the first fight. Micth Raposo versus Lima. Micth Raposo Raposo's 9-1, 25 years old, 5'4", with a 64.5-inch reach. Andre Lima is also 25. He's 5'6", 2 inches taller, with a 3-inch reach advantage. This is most likely going to be a striking contest. Mitch Raposo has very good boxing, revs body shots really well, a lot of power for a flyweight, but sometimes he can be a bit patient to find his shots, whereas Andre Lima is going to put the pressure on you. Andre Lima has good boxing, he has good Muay Thai, very good leg kicks, and the leg kicks might be a big thing for Andre Lima getting a win here. Raposo sometimes doesn't check the kicks, focusing a lot on the hands of his opponent, and that is ultimately why I'm going to go with Andre Lima in this fight, winning this by a decision. There should be some good striking exchanges between them two. Then with the Ailin Perez versus Joselyn Edwards. I'm going to go with Ailin Perez. I think she's going to take her to the ground. Edwards doesn't have great takedown defense. She's long and tall, but seeing her getting taken down by Jessica Rose Clark the way she did was very alarming, even though that was a few years ago. And she did get a lot of takedowns in her last fight against Nora Carnali. I think the takedowns from Ailin Perez and the control on top is going to give her the advantage in this fight. But to be honest, it's a low-level fight, man. Probably not going to miss too much missing that one. Then we go to the headliner of the early prelims, the 32-year-old 6'2" with a 74-inch reach Mickey Gall versus the also 32-year-old 5'9" with a 72-inch reach Bassil Hafez. Mickey Gall is coming off 2 losses in a row. Last one a TKO loss to Mike Malott, which was over 2 years ago. Bassil Hafez coming off 1 loss against Jack Della Maddalena before they had 2 wins in a row. Looked good against Jack Della, man. He really did. Good grappling skills, good wrestling. Jack Della had questionable counters to the takedowns with the guillotines and stuff, which he shouldn't have went for. Jack made the fight way harder on himself than he needed to. But I just don't think too much of Mickey Gall, man. He had one big hype moment, defeating Sage Northcutt way back in 2016, and ever since wasn't able to pick up on a good win. And if Bassil Hafez just sprawls and brawls, I think he should win this fight. Mickey Gall's striking is just not that good. He can be threatening on the ground, which is why I think Hafez should choose the path of least resistance here. Stay on the feet with Mickey Gall, stop all the takedowns, overpower him, and be mindful of the gas tank. Hafez did slow down in that Jack Della Maddalena fight, and I wonder if he's going to be like self-conscious about that going into this one. So I'm going to pick Bassil Hafez here, and I could see a TKO, but I think a safe bet would be for him to win by a decision. Then we go to the prelims, starting with Niko Price versus Alex Morono. It was supposed to be Niko Price versus Jeremiah Wells. Wells got pulled out of the fight. Morono's in. I like Niko Price, but man, his chin I think is just gone at this point. Too many wars, and now he has 2 knockout losses in a row. Really bad one against Robbie Lawler. The Philip Rowe was a TKO in the 3rd round, and Niko Price only has 1 win in the last 4 years, and that was against Alex Oliveira. Niko Price is dangerous, he's got a lot of power, and he constantly goes for the knockout, but I just don't think his chin is going to hold up when he exchanges with Alex Morono. He's wild, he's very hittable, and he may look like a glass cannon at this point of his career, where he still is able to get knockouts if he connects on you correct, but I just don't think he's going to be able to take the shots himself. So I'm going to go with Alex Morono, who stays a bit more technical, a bit more composed, and I think he's going to pick his shots better than Niko Price, putting him down. So I'm going to go with Morono by a knockout, probably in the 2nd or 3rd rounds. Then we go to Philip Rowe versus Jake Matthews. Philip Rowe is 33 years old, he's 6'2", with an 80.5-inch reach. Insane. He could punch Jake Matthews from across the cage with that reach. Jake Matthews is 29 years old. He's 5'9" with a 73-inch reach. He was one time a lightweight, but now permanently as a welterweight. Philip Rowe had 1 fight last year against Neil Magny, a very close split decision loss. In 2022, though, he had 2 wins in a row, both knockout wins against Niko Price and Jason Witt. Jake Matthews went 1-1 in 2023. He lost his last fight against Michael Morales, but before that submitted Darius Flowers. And here's the thing about Philip Rowe. The man's been grappling like crazy. He just grappled Craig Jones, even though he got rolled on. But he's been practicing, he's been focusing on the grappling part of his game, and that's going to help him a lot going into this Jake Matthews fight. But I don't know if it's going to be enough for him to handle the grappling with Jake Matthews. Jake is probably still going to be better on the ground than Philip Rowe, but at least Philip Rowe can develop enough of a takedown defensive game to keep the fight standing, use his reach advantage, throw those check hooks, and punish Jake Matthews' blitz or whenever he's trying to lunge in for punches. He did a good job defending Neil Magny's takedowns, didn't get taken down a single time in that fight, but he did get taken down a bunch when he fought Jason Witt, and his wrestling didn't really look too great against Orion Koski. So this is a tough fight to call. Definitely not a fight I would bet on. As an official prediction, it's a risky pick, but I'm going to go with Philip Rowe here. I think Jake Matthews stays outside a little too long. He's a bit too patient to look for his openings at times, and that can keep him at long range so Philip Rowe can start landing his punches, work off the jab and the left hook. And I'm trusting his venture into the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world, and hopefully at the same time he's been working on his takedown defense because he desperately needs to get better in that area. So I'm going to go with Philip Rowe here, and I'm going to go by a 3rd round TKO. Then we're going to Grant Dawson Dawson versus Joe Solecki. They're both 30 years old, 5'8". Grant Dawson has about an 1.5 inch reach advantage on top of Solecki. Dawson's coming off a knockout loss against Bobby Green. He got absolutely destroyed by Green. 33-second knockout. But before that, he was on a 12-fight unbeaten streak. One draw in there against Ricky Glenn. Joe Solecki, on the other hand, is also coming off a knockout loss to Drakkar Klose. He got slammed in the first round. Before that was on a 2-fight win streak. Before that, lost to Jared Gordon by a split decision. And both guys are good grapplers, right? Not really great strikers. Probably going to be a striking contest, at least we hope so. You know, if we see them stand up with each other, it might look like a younger version of Ben Askren and Damian Maia. But I would probably say Grant Dawson and Joe Solecki are better strikers than those two. I would like to hope so, at least. Both are black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and have legitimate Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. It's not just a toy belt given to them. But I do think that Grant Dawson's a little bit better than Joe Solecki in most areas of MMA. I think his striking is a little bit more polished, and especially coming off a knockout loss against Bobby Green where he got annihilated in the stand-up, I think he would have to be a lot more focused on getting better in that area moving forward in his career, because it wasn't just a technique issue. He looked like he lacked confidence in the stand-up with Bobby Green. So I'd imagine that Grant Dawson's the one who's going to take the fight to the ground. He's going to hold top control. He's going to show a bit of a wrestling difference between him and Solecki and ultimately win the fight through a decision. Should be a pretty good grappling match between the two, though. Then we go to the featured fight of the prelims. The undefeated 5-0 Cesar Almeida versus the 12-3 Roman Kopylov. Almeida is 36 years old. He stands at 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. Roman Kopylov is 33 years old, even though he doesn't look like it. He's 6 feet tall with a 1-inch reach advantage at 75 inches. This is going to be an explosive striking match. Cesar Almeida's kickboxing skills versus Roman Kopylov's. Cesar Almeida was a kickboxer for most of his combat sports career. He fought in Glory, WGP, mostly fought in Brazil, sometimes in Russia, but definitely honed his skills in the striking. I don't know if he's going to be ready for the grappling of Roman Kopylov if Kopylov goes that direction. Now, everybody knows Kopylov is a striker as well, but he has gone for takedowns in the past. He took down Punahele Soriano, who's a striker. He took down Albert Duraev, as well as Carl Robertson, another kickboxer. But the thing is, Roman Kopylov is not that great when he gets on the ground. This guy got submitted by Carl Robertson, of all people. But that was back in 2019. Roman Kopylov had to have gotten much better in the grappling, and this guy is from Combat Sambo. All the guys over there in Russia, they all grapple, they all wrestle. So it's like, I think he's going to have this sort of advantage over Cesar Almeida. Now, Almeida's from Brazil. You know, a lot of those guys do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just don't know if Cesar Almeida specifically has gone that direction. You know, we know Roman Kopylov was in Combat Sambo. Cesar Almeida, all we know was that he was a kickboxer. And the man's been taken down already 6 times in the UFC by Dylan Budka and Lucas Fernando. Both of these guys took him down 3 times each. And Roman Kopylov can get an easier kind of win here if he mixes up his striking and his wrestling. But if he wants to live up to the hype and just make it a striking match, that's going to be very, very dangerous, man. Cesar Almeida is seasoned. He's got good boxing. He's got good hands, a dynamic left hook into a right straight, good body kicks. He is a bit aggressive, whereas Roman Kopylov will kind of just stick his ground and fight you at a certain distance. He's got amazing kicks, really good counter shots. I think Almeida could run into some trouble of trying to close the distance on Kopylov and get countered for it. If he stays at range, Kopylov is very good at masking up his kicks as well as condition you for the head kick like he did against Claudio Ribeiro, which is still my favorite knockout from Roman Kopylov. His strikes are very precise. He's got a lot of power, but I just don't know how he's going to respond if Cesar Almeida is able to get in his face and start laying the hands on him, or how he's going to counteract the pressure off of the body kicks. So ultimately, very tough fight to call. Definitely not one I would bet on, but I'm going to go with Roman Kopylov by a second round knockout. I can see Cesar catching him as well, but I do like the counter punches from Roman against the pressure from Cesar Almeida. And I do like Kopylov's more dexterous kicks, mixing up the body and head strikes. And if you guys want to capitalize on your picks, make sure to go to mybookie.ag because they got the best lines out there. So for an example, Andre Lima is a minus 244 against a plus 186 Mitch Raposo. It's understandable why Lima is a big favorite here. He's not the one preparing a short notice. He's been in camp, he's been training, but Mitch Raposo cannot be slept on. The guy has respectable boxing skills. So of course I think Lima is going to win, but it's much closer than the odds are giving it. Ailin Perez minus 197, I can understand that. Bassil Hafez minus 360, definitely understand that. Alex Morono, another big favorite. So I would say Bassil Hafez and Alex Morono winning are way better than maybe Ailin Perez and Andre Lima winning. Definitely do more research, definitely watch more more fights and come to your own conclusion on that. Jake Matthews is the favorite, minus 164. This is a fight I would probably avoid. I picked Philip Rowe, but I could definitely see where Matthews beats him. Grant Dawson at minus 420 against Joe Solecki. One rule of thumb about Grant Dawson, never bet on him again. Cesar Almeida and Roman Kopylov is nearly a pick'em. Cesar Almeida is a slight favorite, which I kind of understand. It's another fight I wouldn't bet on. And then on the featured fights, which I'm going to get to next, Randy Brown is a minus 183. Jailton Almeida is a minus 275. Kevin Holland minus 280. I don't know about these last two right there. I don't know about Almeida and Holland being that big of favorites. Sean Strickland minus 240 and Islam Makhachev minus 599, the biggest favorite on the card, which is crazy when he's going up against Dustin Poirier. For anybody to be that big of a favorite against Dustin is quite insane. I really don't care if it's Islam, if it's Khabib coming back, if it's Benson Henderson in his prime, if it's Tony Ferguson, or whoever it is. Doesn't matter. Max Holloway, Conor McGregor in his prime. Nobody should be that big of a favorite against Dustin Poirier, in my opinion. So definitely a lot of good bets here. You could put on some good parlays as well. And when you first sign up with mybookie.ag, you get a first deposit bonus where they'll match whatever you deposit all the way up to $1,000. So if you put in like 50, they give you another 50 on top of that. And in order to activate that bonus, all you gotta do is use the promo code WEASEL. That's WEASLE. Then you'll get that sign up bonus. It will come with a rollover withdrawal requirement. And with that, let's go right to the main card. We're gonna start with Randy Brown versus Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos. This should be another very good striking match. Randy Brown's very long, he's very tall, he's got accurate punches, works very well off the jab, has decent movement. Zaleski's got very good kicks, comes from a capoeira background, will swing that overhand out there a little too wild at times for my liking, especially against a longer opponent like Randy Brown. Zaleski will move away from his opponent, giving him a bit of control of the fight, especially distance management and all that stuff. That's not something he would want to do against Randy Brown, because once Randy starts working off the jab, it's going to be quite difficult for Zaleski to use his hands the way he does. But he's got the kicks. That's the biggest thing for him. You know, the body and leg kicks can counter Randy Brown's jab. But ultimately, I think Randy should just outright beat Zaleski with distance boxing. Fight off the jab and move around responsibly. But depending on the strike that Zaleski throws, right? Zaleski has the dynamic kicks which can counter that jab naturally, whether he hits the body with the switch lead kick or he hits the leg with the rear kick. The kicks can be a problem for Randy, but Zaleski isn't this composed technician like Adesanya or Volkanovski where he will surgically cut up your techniques like the way they do, right? Zaleski usually throws stuff out there in general ways that fighters respond, so he'll throw looping overhands to intercept your lateral movements once he sees them, or inconsistently counter with the kicks. I think Randy's footwork is going to be the deciding reason for him winning or losing this fight. If he can keep busy with the boxing, feinting as Zaleski like crazy, and avoid the kicks, he should win the fight. And Randy had very good experience going up against Muslim Salikov in his last fight, where he got a spectacular knockout. Someone who throws similar techniques like spinning kicks and overhands and timing your movements and stuff like that. Also, Muslim and Zaleski have very similar statures. So because of all this, I'm going to pick Randy Brown to win this fight. I think he's going to defeat Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos by a third round TKO. The damage from the boxing of Randy is going to accumulate throughout the fight until the third round, where I think he should be able to get that TKO. And now we go to the sleeper of the card, literally. The blanket fight between Jailton Almeida and the man who morphs, Alexander Romanov. It is impossible to know how this fight will play out without knowing what form Romanov is going to show up in. Is he going to be in this Chad transformation, as cringe as that term is now these days? Or is he going to be Jabba the Hutt? Does he choose the speed and stamina? Or does he choose damage resistance and health? In a way, you can look at this, considering he's fighting Almeida and is not a striker. So he should show up with more stamina stats, if you know what I'm saying. Or he's going to get tucked into bed for 3 rounds. So he needs to be in shape. I think the wrestling should go to Romanov if he is in shape, and it might turn into a striking contest. I don't expect Romanov to want to take Almeida to the ground, but maybe his top control is just that much better where he's confident in doing so. Almeida is one of the smaller heavyweights. He's very quick, he's very nimble, and that gives him a distinct advantage in the stand-up where both fighters aren't technically that great at. So we go down to the attributes and the few techniques we know that they like to use, like Almeida's front kick that he throws all the time and those weird jumping punches. Both guys are just not great at striking. So I think Almeida should win in the stand-up because he is faster and he seems to have better physical mechanics for striking than Romanov does. Romanov, in my opinion, has a better shot at being the blanket, given his wrestling background, his size, and his strength. I mean, the guy is insanely strong. The way he suplexes opponents is abnormal. So for my pick, it can really go either way. It's hard to know how this fight is going to look like without knowing how Romanov is going to look like. I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida to defeat Alexander Romanov by a decision in a competitive fight. Unless Romanov is out of shape, then Almeida wins this easy, probably in the first or second rounds. Romanov is going to gas out, he won't be able to keep up with the pace, and he'll just be way too slow. So I'm going to go with Jailton Almeida here by a decision. Then we go to Kevin Holland versus Michal Oleksiejczuk in the middleweight division. Kevin Holland's moving up, and thankfully for him, he's not going up against a wrestler because that was always the biggest hindrance in his middleweight career. The guy does not walk around heavy. I mean, 186 pounds is kind of light, man. A lot of these middleweights are walking at like what, 205, 210? In Paulo Costa's case, like 220, 230. I don't know what Michal walks around at. He doesn't look like a really big guy, but I think he's going to be a little bit bigger at least than Kevin Holland. He is a striker. He has decent hands, good hand speed, southpaw, which is going to open up the power hands of each other. A good old open stance fight, and Kevin Holland's reach advantage is going to play a big part in that. His best punch is that right straight. But Michal has taken down opponents before, right? He's not lacking any wrestling skill. So if he wants to go the path of least resistance, I actually don't even know. I don't even know if taking down Kevin Holland would be the right move. I would say mixing it up just to open up strikes and stuff would be the best plan. But Kevin Holland's pretty dangerous at some of his submissions. You saw that against Michael Chiesa. And he had that crazy knockout off of his back against Jacare Souza of all people. But he's going to put on some good pressure on Kevin Holland. He's going to walk forward, look for the left hand. He does throw it a little bit winging at times, which is very, very dangerous, as Kevin Holland's going to pinpoint that sniping right straight from long range, or even close range with some other punches with the same hand. I mean, his right hand's got some crazy angles to them, and he's wild himself. Looping left hooks from a mile away. It can still hit you from there because of that reach. Lining up the right straight. This fight could get very sloppy very quickly, depending on the pressure that Michal puts on Kevin Holland, and anything can happen at that point. But it is a pretty basic fight to think about in terms of like the tools that both these guys have. They don't have like a plethora of different weapons, like for an example, Volkanovski has, or Wonder Boy, or all these other technical strikers in the UFC have. So my prediction for this fight, I'm gonna go with Kevin Holland. I think he's gonna line up that right hand, catch Michal with it, and put him down either in the second or third rounds. I see Michal open himself on that punch way too many times. Even against someone like Jean Vellante, he was throwing that left hook to the body, and Vellante caught him with the right hand at the same time, but Michal landed a perfectly placed shot on the liver. But regardless, even if he lands a liver shot like that on Kevin Holland at the same time, Holland could still put him out. And how crazy would an exchange like that be between Holland and Michal? Michal lands a liver shot, hurts Kevin Holland, but at the same time, Holland landed a right hand that knocks Michal out. That would be a wild exchange, man. And that's the kind of stuff we could see in this fight between them two. So it's going to be a very fun fight. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland this one, though. And then we go to the co-main event, a 5-rounder, which is, of course, going to favor the man in the red corner, the former middleweight champion, now #1 contender, Sean Strickland, going up against the #7 contender, former title challenger, Paulo Costa. Man, did Sean Strickland get so much better throughout his career. Do I remember this guy when he was in the welterweight division, and nobody really thought anything of him. He was kind of just there, right? He would have some good, decent wins against like Tom Breeze, close fight, but Tom Breeze was someone I always had my eye on. I like the way he would box. I like his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. He had the knockout win against Alex Garcia back then, but then lose the big fights against like Kamaru Usman and Zaleski dos Santos, cutting way too much weight to try to make 170. Well, not try to make, he made it, which is insane. He always made the weight. And we look at him these days and we're like, how did this guy ever even get close to 170? And he's been a new man in the middleweight division. Got arguably the biggest upset win in UFC history against Israel Adesanya. And looking back at that, it was like a no-brainer that he would compete well stylistically with someone like Adesanya or any other patient, long-range sniper. Then he had a razor-close loss to Dricus du Plessis, where a lot of people thought he won the fight. Looks like most people thought he won the fight, and it should be an immediate rematch. He should have fought for the title again, at least over someone like Israel Adesanya. But we got this fight with Paulo Costa, and Costa is 1-3 in his last 4 fights, and that win is against Luke Rockhold, and he didn't even finish him. Now, he looked way better when he fought Robert Whittaker. The Paulo Costa that fought Whittaker in his last fight looked way better than when he fought Luke Rockhold. Even though he lost against Whittaker, he landed some good jabs from range and even rocked him with a spinning kick to the head. And that's the biggest thing going for Paulo Costa. Those kicks, man, those may be the most destructive weapons against Sean Strickland in this fight. Strickland's got the boxing advantage in my opinion, but the kicks from Costa can change the boxing exchanges between them two, slowing down the movement of Strickland, taking away a bit of the balance, even countering some of the jabs. And he has so much power in those kicks. They're very heavy. Well, does he have a lot of power? He could even drop Whittaker with a spinning kick to the head. No, he's got a lot of power. They're very heavy. I don't know how Whittaker took that shot. He shouldn't have been knocked out. But maybe Whittaker's chin is just getting better. Might be all the Skyrim he plays or something. I don't know. Yeah, but Costa's kicks are probably going to be his most lethal techniques. He's quite accurate with them, generates huge power, and Strickland's loose guard could get his arm even damaged or broken with how sometimes he blocks outward with his arms. Shin to forearm could be disastrous for Sean Strickland here. He's got to be very careful careful with the way he blocks when Paulo Costa's throwing those heavy kicks at him. Strickland has gotten better at checking leg kicks, but we saw most of that against Izzy, where he could walk him down while checking, crowding the longer fighter who wants to keep himself at range. Walking at Costa while checking is playing with fire. Now, Strickland can make a pressure-heavy game plan work against Paulo Costa, but why would he when he has the reach advantage this time? You know, a significant 4-inch reach advantage on Costa is very important with those jabs and hooks. And kind of how I talked about Randy Brown's game plan, Sean can actually do something similar here to win. Costa will get wild at times with the haymakers. He wants the fight to be closer in range, and he could punish Sean with big kicks. Sean can win through distance boxing, fighting off the jab, and moving responsibly, so he doesn't get countered by the kicks and haymakers. And the thing about Costa is he's never really dealt well against the jab. From the Uriah Hall fight way back in the day to the Whitaker fight a few months ago, Costa just can't get his face away from eating a good jab. It's like Big Macs to him, you know? He just constantly bites down on them. And none of these guys throw the jab the same way. Uriah Hall moves around and pops the jab up from his hip and from an incredible distance too. Whitaker will lunge forward with his body weight behind him, or he'll even stutter step for a quick jab. Strickland doesn't really move that much, and he's constantly just throwing them with little telegraph. And Sean's jab can get overwhelming to deal with, and Costa's going to be there to hit all day with it. The fight being 5 rounds also doesn't help Costa's chances, putting Sean into his world once that 4th round begins. Now, the big thing that could go for Costa is his size. The man is enormous and probably doesn't truly belong at 185 pounds with how massive he is. He walked into the cage before at about 214 pounds. Cage weight. Strickland walks around not in shape, like not in fight shape at all, at almost 220 pounds. Strickland's also fought at 170 pounds before, while Costa has a tough time making 185 pounds. But this isn't anything new for Strickland. He's fought bigger middleweights before, and he's gotten close against 2 of them. You know, he nearly beat Dricus du Plessis, who was bigger than him, and he also fought Jared Cannonier, who was bigger than he was. And the thing about both those fights is a lot of people, or most people, believe that he won both of those. The only bigger guy that he lost to was Alex Pereira. But I do think he's going to get the win this time against the bigger opponent. I'm picking Sean Strickland to win against Paulo Costa by a 5th round TKO or by a decision. I don't like Costa's cardio going against Strickland's activity for 5 rounds. I do think that Costa will slow down significantly in the 5th round, and when Strickland senses that you're slowing down, he starts fighting you like he's fighting his demons. Like how he destroyed Abus Magomedov, how he was fighting Nazardine Imavov, how he dropped Israel Adesanya, and then start wailing on him against the fence. I think Sean Strickland's going to get the win here, and might get a 10-8 round, if not finish Paulo Costa in the 5th round. And then we go to the main event. The lightweight champion Islam Makhachev versus the former interim champion, top contender Dustin Poirier. Wait, is it bad to say Dustin winning would be the US's greatest victory since the Cold War? It is also the week of Memorial Day as well. Now, when this fight first got announced, I had the feeling that Islam was probably going to overlook Dustin by just wanting someone to quickly fight. You know, give me someone to fight really quick. Oh, it's Dustin. All right, cool. Let me destroy him really quick. Now, Islam is saying that he is taking Dustin seriously, but it seems like he's not really telling the truth. He always laughs or smiles when discussing Dustin's skills, especially the guillotine, and a lot of what he talks about is just Dustin being dangerous, which can be said for most of Islam's potential opponents. It's nothing unique, you know? Islam better take Dustin seriously, man, because overlooking anyone at the elite level of lightweight can hand any of them a loss. Now, we know Dustin is going to be focused and ready to avenge his performance against Khabib 4 years ago. Through Islam, though, right? He's going to do it through Islam. Dustin's camp has been talking about the holes in Khabib's game. His new coach must be Kevin Lee. But they were talking a lot about what Dustin learned against that style and how he'll correct it this time. Which is smart, but they have to differentiate from Khabib's style to Islam's. They aren't exactly the same. They do quite a few things differently. The preparation seems to be focusing on the mistakes Dustin did against Khabib. Dustin mentally has a lot more purpose and motivation for this fight, in my opinion. He knows this is his last title shot. He knows it's his chance to be content with what happened against Khabib. It's his chance to finally achieve the goal he set since he started this sport. It's his chance to cement his legacy in stone forever. For Islam, it's just another title defense, and it's a contender to beat. Dustin's resolve is going to be much stronger than ever before, and that cannot be overlooked. Remember that most of fighting is mental, and Dustin might have the edge there. Now, enough coping? No, I'm kidding. It's a real asset about Dustin Poirier that Islam needs to be focused on. Now, stylistically, Islam is probably going to take Dustin down and submit him. It's probably going to happen. I mean, he is a 6-1 favorite. That is crazy. crazy. I do not think Dustin could stay on his feet for an entire round unless Islam chooses that. Dustin's takedown defense is okay, and okay is not enough to stop a man who has the back muscles of Yujiro. Bro's got the demon back, and I don't know if Dustin's gonna be able to stop him from taking him to the ground. Islam might have a considerable strength advantage here. His grip is monstrously strong. The guy has back muscles in places that don't even look normal. He is an enormous lightweight. Walking around at about 183 pounds and lean is insane for a lightweight. Most lightweights are lean at about 170 something pounds, you know? So we know what most likely happens if Islam gets a hold of Dustin. And Dustin, please don't pull the ghillie, man. If you're gonna pull the ghillie, don't try to finish it. Use it to move positions, you know? Get a better position on Islam. Pull in the high elbow to make it more threatening of the choke itself. Get Islam to start moving around and get your back off the fence. That would be like the most optimal way of using the guillotine. But if he actually pulled it and got on Islam, I'm going to be playing American music in every video from now on, because that would be the most insane win ever. Like, it'd be crazy if he actually pulled the guillotine and got it for the first time in his UFC career on someone like Islam Makhachev, who's been preparing against it, has been talking against it, has been downplaying it, making jokes about Dustin Poirier's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu skills. Imagine he's the guy that gets submitted by it. But what does it look like in the striking? I think Islam will land some decent shots on Dustin while feinting. Both are southpaw, which is going to open up Dustin's superior jab, just like how he did when he fought Conor McGregor. He had a very good jab throughout that fight, especially the second one. But Islam is quick on the counter punches and had an effective counter right hook. He throws a strange, almost like a Russian hook, go figure, and extends his arm quite a bit when he throws it, connecting on his opponent with the index knuckle, which is the strongest point of the punch. But Dustin's got a crazy right hook and really good timing on it, shown in the Benoit Saint Denis fight and the last two Conor McGregor fights. Both of those guys were southpaw, just like Islam. So Dustin will most likely win the boxing exchanges, but Islam has way better kicks than Dustin. I imagine he will use the kicks for range manipulation instead of trying to KO Dustin with one. And with the boxing, Islam has to be careful on extending too much with his punches, as Dustin is very dangerous on the linear line. Attacking him straight ahead is risky because of how well he pulls away in counters, although Conor caught him in the second fight with that lead uppercut. Just shows how good truly Conor was. I think Max also caught him a few times linearly as well, but Islam is not a boxer like Conor or Max, so his punching combination should be finished with takedowns. Now, that's where Dustin needs to know where to place his focus. Islam usually punches first and shoots takedowns after. A single counter punch immediately, and then focusing on defending the takedown might be a key pattern for Dustin. The guillotine against the takedown should only be used for position purposes. Looking to submit Islam with the guillotine is like hitting the lottery. He's too confident in outmaneuvering you from the full guard, and he's going to expect that at all times, unless he's rocked. If Dustin rocks him with a good punch, maybe there is a chance for him to win the lottery. But even then, he should just force Islam to stand up for another walloping. So Dustin should avoid the grappling at all times unless he needs to defend a takedown. And ultimately, my prediction for the fight, you gotta go with Islam Makhachev. He's such a big favorite. Everyone's picking him, or most people at least, for good reason as well. He's got such a dominant style at this point of his career, and I think he wins this fight by a rear naked choke in the third round. The reason I pick a rear naked choke is because Dustin has given up his back from failing the guillotine before. He might do the same here. Or Islam just outgrapples him and transitions to his back and gets the choke. Now, I don't think Islam should be a 6-1 favorite. I think it's very disrespectful to Dustin Poirier. It might sound crazy, but Dustin winning by knocking Islam out will not surprise me at all. And every moment on the stand-up is a moment where Dustin can catch Islam Makhachev. He has a very good striking style in order to do so against Islam specifically, as long as he can avoid getting taken to the ground. If he could defend the single leg and not get driven up to the fence, focus on the trips and throws from there. And we have seen Islam in the past get reversed. Arman Tsarukyan did a good job at that, Chris Wade way back in the day, and even Thiago Moises had a few good grappling sequences with Islam Makhachev. Now, Dustin's probably not as good of a grappler as Arman or even Moises, speaking purely on just grappling, but there are positions that Dustin can absolutely make work as Islam was looking to transition on the ground. So I hope you guys enjoyed the predictions, and if you did, make sure to give this a video a like, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, comment below your predictions for the card, and I'll see you guys in the next video.